Hello and welcome to DFS Deep Dive. My name is Brian Craighead. My co-host tonight is going to be Jordan. Jordan, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good, Brian. As always, we're closer to Sunday.
That's right, one day closer. Coming off a Thursday night game. Do not have Amazon Prime, so I kept up with it on CBS Sportsline, but I don't think I missed any real activity. How was the game last night?
I was ugly all the way around. I had an early lineup that I did earlier in the week that had Pacheco as captain, and that lineup did really well. I didn't have enough Kelsey. I didn't expect him to go for 120, 121 yards, 129 yards. I don't know. But yeah, he had a game.
Were you able to cash anywhere?
Yeah, I picked up a little bit, but nothing major.
As long as it cashed a little bit, that's the important thing. So,
Right.
like you said, we're ready. We're ready for week 6. Just like last week, we got a couple of teams on bye this week. It's going to be the Steelers and the Packers. Are only 2 teams, but I would encourage those. We're a DFS show. That being said, I imagine we both probably play some redraft and dynasty perhaps, but keep in mind that next week is Mageddon, as I like to call it. It's 6 teams on bye next week, so I like to prepare a week ahead of time in any redraft league. So just keep that in mind. We've also got several primetime games. Last night did not wind up being much of a primetime game, but the Chiefs won 19-8 over the Broncos. On Sunday morning, we got another London game. It's going to be the Ravens and the Titans. On Sunday night, we have the Giants playing at the Bills. Seems like about half the Giants players, including Daniel Jones, are out this week. And then last but not least, I think what could be one of the more exciting, if not the most exciting game of the weekend to me anyway. I'm excited to see it. It's the Cowboys traveling to play the Chargers on Monday Night Football. So I think that'll be pretty good. As always, I want to go over a few games that have what we kind of expect to be higher implied totals. The Dolphins are sitting at 31. The Rams sitting at an implied total of 28. The Jaguars are sitting at 25. You've got the Vikings sitting at 24. They're playing at the Bears at 21. You've also got the Bengals sitting at 24, and they're playing versus Seattle, which is at 21. I think that could be pretty exciting. You got the Lions sitting at 24, playing at the Bucks. Bucks totals 20. And then last but not least, you got the Eagles sitting at 24. They're playing at the Jets 17. And I'd love for Jordan to hop in on any of this that he wants to, but seems like a really big week of injuries to me. What did you think about all that, Jordan?
Yeah, if you look, so like the last few weeks, we've had a couple games with over 50-point totals, and those have kind of been the ones that really leapt out on the sheet. This week isn't, there's 2 games at 48.5 for an implied total, one at 45.5, and then a couple at 44.5. And all the ones that you mentioned those are all the games that I wrote in my article. Was the same thing. I mean, I think all those you really have to look at. I mean, there's not just that one game where you can be like, oh, Chiefs, Minnesota. Yep, I'm all over. Or Bills, Miami. I'm all over it. This is one where, you can pick and choose. And I think it's going to leave ownerships and stuff really, really dispersed across the board.
Yeah. We'll go over positional plays here shortly. But one thing I noticed to me anyway is there seemed to be a lot of opportunity with lower priced quarterbacks that you don't always see out there. That was one thing that kind of stood out to me. And like I was saying, there was several big injuries this week that as of today, with Khalil Herbert being added to the short-term IR, there was 5 players this week alone that got put on short-term injured reserve, and that means you have to sit out 4 weeks. Those guys, you got Justin Jefferson, Devon Achane. You've also got Anthony Richardson, James Conner, and like I said today, you actually had Khalil Herbert added to the mix. So Khalil Herbert was already out, but then he got added to short-term IR. Then also you got a handful of guys that are going to be out this week. So Rashawn Johnson for the Bears. So with Rashawn Johnson and also Khalil Herbert being out, that leads to a Deontay Foreman situation. Like I said, Khalil Herbert is out. Jahmyr Gibbs is out this week. Not that he ever plays or matters. Juju Smith-Schuster's out. Deshaun Watson is out. Miles Sanders is out. Daniel Jones also out. Jawan Jennings and Zay Jones. So just keep in mind when setting your lineups this weekend that those guys are not going to be playing. And then you got a few others that are going to be coming in as questionable. You've got Sam Laporta. I think he'll play. He went through a walkthrough today, but he's the number one tight end across redraft leagues. T. Higgins with his broken ribs, he practiced in full today, and typically that means he'll play, but we shall see. You got Njoku for the Browns, and then also you got Marquise Brown that's listed as questionable. Names we got going on is Elijah Mitchell and Tank Dell. So just keep all those names in mind. Jordan, did you want to share your lineup with us this week?
Yeah. Let's get rolling with that. So, and just to speak on the David Njoku injury, I didn't realize that he burned himself like that. Did you see any of that?
I did not see the video or overall. I did see that he had burned himself. As I understand it, he burned himself, I think, prior to playing in week 4.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was like I knew that he popped up on the injury report late, but yeah, he's got some gnarly burns, man. Yeah, he was talking about how he's lucky to have his vision and still be walking around, but
Oh, that's
yeah,
awful. Yeah, I saw that he gotten burned, but I didn't know the extent of it. What do you know the details of what may have happened?
it's something with a fire pit incident. I don't know exactly what happened. I didn't get to read the full article. I was just kind of scrolling through Twitter, and it popped up. And yeah, he's got some pretty severe third-degree burns on his face. It's pretty gnarly. So kudos to that guy for toughing that one out and being able to play through it.
Well, that's the amazing thing is that so it happened week 4. Prior to week 4, they had the week 5 bye, and now 2 weeks later he's still dealing with it. So it may be something. Gosh, I mean that just has to be awful burns.
Oh yeah. All right, so let me jump in here. So this is the final. This is kind of like a first look. But so I started off with Joe Burrow at 6,300, Raheem Mostert 6,400, DeAndre Swift at 6,100, DJ Moore at 6,500, KJ Osborne at 4,400, Garrett Wilson at 6,000, Logan Thomas 3,500, Jamar Chase at 8,300, and then the Bears defense at a cheap price of $2,500.
That's a nice lineup. I had something similar. Actually, I've got 3 out of your 9 players on my roster as well, and a couple of the other guys that you mentioned, like Logan Thomas and DJ Moore, were in my lineup at one point in time. I made some adjustments, kind of last minute before we headed on the show. But yeah, you and I have some pretty similar lineups. Burrow kind of. I mean, finally turned things around last week, so I was glad to see that. And DraftKings did not adjust his price the way they should have. He should be, in my book, he should be closer to 6,800, 7,000 range. I think, don't you?
Oh yeah, he only went up $100 from last week. So I mean, if he pulls out even another, he pulled out 27.4 points last week. So I mean, he 4.5x his salary. So if he can do even 20 points this week, at that price, he's still paying off.
And Mostert is in your lineup. He's in mine too. One thing our listeners need to keep in mind is, like I said, A-Chain is on short-term IR, so he's out. And then they were going to activate, or they were going to. They've opened his practice window, but Jeffrey Wilson Jr. They opened his 3-week practice window this week, and I honestly thought he was going to play. but now today he was listed as doubtful. So it's very possible that Mostert gets that entire backfield minus Salvon Ahmed as to himself. So sitting at 6,400, they didn't adjust his price either. They had adjusted it down. A-Chain is actually currently, I think, second or third highest price running back on the slate, maybe second off the top of my head.
Yeah, second overall behind McCaffrey at 7,400.
So, they just did not adjust Mostert up, I don't think. So you've always got to be looking at those discrepancies. That it's kind of like horse racing. You see a morning line that isn't properly adjusted for certain factors, and you make those adjustments yourself, and you get a good betting line. And that's what we're doing here. We're playing odds and we're playing opportunity. So,
yeah, I think the biggest reason why is just a lot of these injuries, like a lot of them got banged up on Sunday afternoon, and then nothing really happened until late Monday, early Tuesday. So DraftKings, for their contest, they've already got the pricing set. So by Monday night they've got the contest ready to go. So but now it gives you a dilemma, because there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of players that you can really get to that it's like, oh man, this guy's in a good matchup. Oh, this guy's super cheap and in a good matchup. Oh, this guy's got the backfield to himself. So it'll be interesting on how some people build.
Oh, exactly. And then another guy that I didn't use my initial lineup, but Chuba Hubbard's going to be at $4,300, and he's got with Miles Sanders being out, he's kind of got the backfield to himself. I don't know if I love the matchup or even the player, but at $4,300, it's kind of hard to get away from that if you wanted to go cheap. So like you said, there's a lot of opportunity. So I'm gonna go over mine real quick. Like I said, I've got some similarities to you. I love the Burrow Chase stack, so I went with that as well. Mostert, I also went with him sitting at $6,400. My other running back is going to be David Montgomery at the Bucks. He's sitting at 7,300. Along with Chase, my two wide receivers are Christian Kirk, sitting at $5,400. They're playing the Colts. And I've got Adam Thielen, and they are playing at the Dolphins, and he's sitting at, I believe it's 5,900. Yeah, 5,900. And then along with that, my tight end, I went back to the well again. Kyle Pitts didn't hurt me last week, so I'm going to go with him again at 3,500. I really love this guy as a comeback player to the Jaguars player. I went with Josh Downs at $4,100. Like I said earlier, Gardner Minshew is going to get the start this week. I almost went with the Gardner Minshew Josh Downs stack because it's so inexpensive and allows you an opportunity to really build other places. And last but not least, I went with the Lions defense at the Bucks, and they're sitting at $2,700. So that's my lineup for the week.
Yeah, I think when I started my build, I had Minshew. I had Minshew to Downs as well.
Did you really?
Yeah, that's how I started it. That's how I started my build, and yeah, like you said, I mean, it just lets you get to anything you want.
Oh man, that opened up the whole slate. And in some of my lineups, I'll imagine I'll go with that. That it's kind of hard to bypass that cheap. Combined, they're $9,100, so it's kind of hard to bypass that to allow yourself to go elsewhere. So
exactly.
So do we want to do a commercial before we do any of our position reveals, or what do we want to?
Yeah, let's do that. We'll go with commercial from Durham Modeling here real quick before we jump into the player breakdown.
Serving the Quad Cities area since 1973. And with over 50 years of excellence on their track record, you'll see why it's so easy to trust their experts when it comes to all of your home improvement projects. This family-owned business has you covered on all your needs. Protect your home or building from the elements today and get great roof repair services. Need new windows? No problem. Durham Remodeling can upgrade your windows and doors. Whether you want to upgrade the little details in your home or office, or want to tear a room down and start fresh, the expert contractors at Durham Remodeling have your back. Even the smallest changes can completely transform your space. Ready to start entertaining your friends for backyard barbecues? Durham Remodeling will help you plan, design, and build your deck and patio for the perfect outdoor space. Durham Remodeling's work is 100% guaranteed, so you can rest assured that you're getting the best service around. Call 309-786-6715 today for your free estimate for all your roofing, siding, flooring, windows, and painting needs. That's Durham Remodeling, 309-786-6715.
So now we're going to go into our quarterback review. And like I said, there are so many good options here. First of all, there's only a total of, I believe it's 10 games on this slate this week, which would be 20 quarterbacks. And to be honest with you, I only did not like maybe 7 or 8. It seems like every time I was going through the matchups, I always looked for fantasy points given up by the opposing defenses. Well, every time I would look over a player, he would have. I mean, yeah, there's matchups that aren't great, and like I said, maybe 7 or 8 I didn't write down, but there were some pretty juicy matchups. And usually, I don't find myself going cheap at quarterback, but I thought like Gardner Minshew would definitely be an option if I wanted to go that route. So
Yeah, when I wrote my article, and it seemed like I was just going down the list, and I'm like, yeah, this guy's a good matchup. Yep, he's good too. Yep, he's good too. So,
yeah, I was kind of surprised. You don't typically see that, and I didn't necessarily see it across all positions, but it seemed like quarterback in particular really stood out as options. So,
oh yeah,
so my first one I wrote down was Jalen Hurts at the Jets. He's sitting at 8,200. Tua versus the Panthers sitting at 7,600. I've got Justin Fields, who's been as hot as any quarterback here lately with his connection with DJ Moore. He's playing versus the Vikings, sitting at 7,300. I don't love this without Justin Jefferson, but I could be talked into Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's got a really good matchup. Bears are awful against the pass. I am a little concerned without Jefferson, but almost too good a matchup to pass up in some ways. He might not be my number one choice, but he definitely would be a choice. He's sitting at 7,100. Then we've got Trevor Lawrence. I really like this game, as you can tell. I've got Minshew as well, so I got Trevor Lawrence sitting at 6,500 against the Colts. Jared Goff, he's playing at the Bucks at 6,400. Our joint choice of Joe Burrow at 6,300. I like Matthew Stafford going against the Cardinals at 6,100. I didn't mind Geno Smith at Cincinnati sitting at 5,700. Then I've also got Baker Mayfield. Baker's been really surprising this year, coming off of a bye week. He's playing against the Lions at 5,400. And last but not least, since I've already mentioned Minshew pretty much the whole show, was Desmond Ridder versus the Commanders, sitting at an even 5,000. So those were my guys. Did you have anybody you'd like to add?
the only other person that I liked that you didn't have on there was, and I'm going to get some grief for it, but Bryce Young. So it's sitting at 5,100. Going up against the high-powered Miami offense, he's going to have to throw. I mean, it's a given. Scored 20 points. That was his best fantasy output last week. 247 yards, 3 touchdowns. Threw the ball 41 times. He does rush a little bit with his legs. Miami's defense is kind of middle of the pack. And like I said, they're going to have to throw just to keep pace with them. So I could see Bryce Young and Adam Thielen being a thing. Bryce Young, Hayden Hurst, Bryce Young, and DJ Chark. I wrote up a few of the Panthers wide receivers, but he was the only guy who really the only guy who I had on my list that you didn't. One mention was I thought about getting down to Zach Wilson again. He burned me last week. I had a really, really good lineup going until it hit the afternoon game. I was like, I still have my quarterback left. I'm good to go. And he got me like 11 points or something like that, 9.6. So it took what could have been a first place lineup to a top 100 lineup.
Yeah, but you still need to get a shout out. In the lineup you put in on air last week, or at least the one that we shared together, and the 4-man competition that DJ put together, you scored over 190 points. So I mean, you had awesome.
I was like
50, which would cash most weeks as well. So we had a pretty good week in general.
Yeah, I think like I said, I just missed on the quarterback. I mean, that was really it. I had Jamar Chase. I was all over. I talked about all Breece Hall and David Montgomery last week. They both smashed. Tyreek Hill had a good game. Honestly, I just whiffed on quarterback.
Yeah, but the Atlanta Braves would like to whiff like that. So,
God, can you imagine that? I mean, all the favored teams except for the Astros out of the World Series.
It's been a weird
playoffs.
It's been a weird series, divisional series. I'm a Reds fan. We didn't make the playoffs, but since I watched baseball towards the end of the year, all the way through the end of the year, I watched some of the playoffs so far. So definitely some interesting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I bet on the Phillies to take Game 4 yesterday just because they've just been hot. So I took them straight up. They were getting a point and a half, and they didn't disappoint. It was a nice little win.
So if you were asked with 4 teams left, who you think is going to win the World Series, who you got?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you who's going to win because I think there's 2 really hot teams. But who I think it's going to be in the World Series will be the Rangers and Philly.
Oh wow!
And I think that series could go to 6, 6 possibly 7 games. But yeah, I got the Rangers and Phillies.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would definitely agree with Philly. The Astros Rangers seems to me a toss up, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. I think the Rangers have a chip on their shoulder. They led the division for 150 games or 148 games for the damn near the whole season, and then lost it there in the last few weeks. But they're getting hot at the right time.
I'm trying to think. Have they lost a playoff game yet?
No, they had 2 sweeps. They went 2-0 against I think the Blue Jays maybe, and then they came out and just swept Minnesota. So
yeah, I think the Rangers beat.
Or not Minnesota. Who the hell did they play?
I could be wrong.
No, it's gonna bug me now, so I can look. Maybe it wasn't the Twins. Oh, Baltimore. Yeah, they came out and they swept Baltimore, and then they beat the Blue Jays. Nope, I lied. The Rays. God, I suck at baseball. Yeah, swept the Rays in 2 games, and then swept the Orioles in 3.
It's been big. So, you want to do our running backs?
Oh yeah, I'm down for that. All right. So this one comes with an asterisk, but Christian McCaffrey, Mr. October, as they keep calling him, scored 20 touchdowns in the month of October for his entire career. I wrote him up because he's a beast. He's going to get all the work. You said Elijah Mitchell's still hurting, so that leaves Jordan Mason as the guy kind of picking up the scraps. But I don't think I'm going to play him this week because at $9,500, he's got to put up 45 points. 45 points just to keep you on pace for a tournament or to hurt you in a tournament. But if anybody's got 40-point upside, it's this guy. So
amazing is the gap between first and second in regards to next prize.
Yeah, I mean, and that guy's on the IR. So Achan's on the IR, but he was at 7,400, so a 2,100 point price difference. That's crazy. So then I got to David Montgomery. His price is really starting to come up, but as long as he's getting all the touches, I'm still going to be on this train. A little tougher matchup. The Tampa Bay defense, they haven't been as good as they have been in years past against the run. They were always kind of a stout run defense, especially, the last few years where Tom Brady was there. But you said Gibbs is out. So, David Montgomery's got all the work again, and Craig Reynolds isn't even factoring into it. So, barring an injury, which could happen, but yeah, David Montgomery at 7,300. I mean, the guy, like I said, he's getting 25 plus touches and he's getting receiving work. I mean, he's live to score every week. And the Lions are firing on all cylinders too. So they get down to the goal line and it's going to be Montgomery season. Then I went to Bijan Robinson. Everybody, I was on him a lot last week. Everybody was kind of on him in a really good matchup against Houston. He kind of dudded out, only put up 12 points, but he's always live to have a big day. And they always talk about the stud off the dud narrative. So I hear a lot of people say that on their podcast. But yeah, he hasn't really put up that studly score. He's had a few, really good games, but yet to have a big ceiling game for his price anyway. So I think this is the cheapest that he's been. Yeah, 7,200 is the cheapest he's been since opening day, where he was 8,000. So, and I got Travis Etienne going up against the Colts. Huge week last week. 40 points, 136 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, caught 4 passes off 5 targets for 48 yards. I like Etienne just because of his floor. He's getting all the work. Tank Bigsby's not even a factor. And the Colts are another team that can be run against a little bit. I skipped over. So, and this one's interesting. And this is, this will probably change. It's Friday night. But if you look at ownerships right now, Josh Jacobs is the highest owner. He's the highest owned running back on the slate. Highest owned running back on the slate. I'm not a fan of Josh Jacobs. He hasn't done it for me yet. He scored 28 points against the Chargers, which was his only really good game. He had 20 points last week against Green Bay, but that's still only 3x his salary. I mean, he's sitting at what, 7K?
7, I think, right?
Yeah. So he's sitting at $7,000. I don't see it. I don't see it. And if he's going to be the highest owned running back on the slate, like, okay, that's it. That's an easy fade. Next guy I wrote up was Alvin Kamara, huge focal point for this offense. He didn't have the 15 targets that he had a week ago, 2 weeks ago, last week, but he still got a total of 25 touches. As he gets more comfortable coming off his suspension, gets some practice in there, I think he's going to have some huge weeks. He gets a plus matchup against Houston here, and I think this is the last week that we see him under 7,000. So 6,800 is a bargain for him, but I think he jumps up into the mid sevens next week. Then I went right next to Kenneth Walker. Consistent touches every week. He's he's the workhorse there. Charbonnet's really not contesting for anything. Honestly, if it's anybody who's contesting him, it's DJ Dallas gets some looks in there. But heavily involved going against the Bengals defense. The Bengals are middle of the pack against the run. I skipped over Jonathan Taylor with Zach Moss coming out and doing what he did last week, and Taylor just kind of getting his feet wet. I think that'll change. I think the back, you look at the matchups last week. Indianapolis, Zach Moss was on the field for 80% of the snaps, where Jonathan Taylor only saw the rest. But Zach Moss got all the touches. Jonathan Taylor was kind of the secondary guy. I do think that's literally just because he's his first game back from the IR. They're kind of testing the waters. They don't want to break him yet. But I think they get more to a 50-50 split this week. But like I said, if Zach Moss is there sucking production, I don't want any part of Jonathan Taylor at 6,600.
Yeah, they coaches came out this week and said they were going to ramp up Taylor's role, but I'll be honest, I don't know how you personally feel, but I would have a hard time going with either Moss or Taylor right now.
That's exactly it. Like I said, they're both explosive enough to where they can get the job done. But if they're splitting touches, so I mean, Zach Moss got how many touches last week? 23. Jonathan Taylor got 6. So you figure 30 touches between the two. I mean, that's 15 touches, and that's not including receiving work. Zach Moss had 2 receptions. Jonathan Taylor had 1. So you're talking, I mean, I guess if you were guaranteeing me that they were both getting 15 to 18 touches, okay. But, you just don't know. You don't know if they're going to ride the hot hand. You don't know what's going to happen. So I think
they're the kind of players that I would recommend playing in redraft, but not DFS.
Exactly. So then I jumped right down to, I skipped over him and I went to Kyron Williams. So last week I was off Kyron Williams. I've been on Kyron Williams this entire time. He's getting all the snaps. Ronnie Rivers, after they traded Cam Akers, he was out there for 100% of the snaps. Didn't get any rest. And then Ronnie Rivers has kind of been stealing a little bit here and there. And then he had a rough matchup last week against the Eagles, but now he gets a plus matchup against Arizona. His price hasn't changed. He's still been floating around the 6,000, the mid sixes, and I think I'm right back on him. I think at the moment, if Raheem Mostert stays as high owned as he is, I'll probably come off Raheem Mostert and go to Kyron Williams just to be a little bit different in tournaments.
Yeah.
And speaking of Mostert, he's the guy I wrote up next. Achan's not here for the next 4 weeks, so it goes back to Raheem Mostert's. It's back to his backfield. I mean, he's still 10 attempts last week for 65 yards and a touchdown. Still getting receiving work. I think Ahmed takes away some of his catches and some of his PPR stats, but I don't think Ahmed gets I don't think he gets the carries, especially just kind of being back, because I don't think Ahmed's played since. He was active for week 4, but didn't see the field. So and he didn't play in week 3, and he was kind of mixing in week 1 and 2, but then Achane overtook that role.
Yeah.
So I skipped over Mixon, skipped over Moss. Another guy who's really intriguing to me, and I can't believe that they haven't priced him up yet. DeAndre Swift. Dude's an animal. He's getting 20 touches per game between attempts and then receiving work. Last week, 17 touches for 70 yards, 6 catches for 38. He's doing it all. The Jets the Jets defense, like you think of the Jets and you're like, man, they got a really good defense. It's their secondary that's really good. Their run defense isn't the greatest. So I do like DeAndre Swift a lot, and that's why he made my lineup. DeAndre Swift, yeah, and that's why I made my lineup. After that, I kind of skipped over a lot of these guys. Brees Hall skipped over going up against Philly's defense. We saw what they just did to Kyron Williams last week. Jameer Gibbs is out. James Conner on the IR. Brian Robinson. I had a lot of them in the showdown last week against the Bears, and they just got totally smoked. Atlanta is actually top 5 run defense this year so far. So I stayed away from Brian Robinson. Next guy I wrote up was Alexander Madison. If there was a week for Madison to do it, it's going to be this week. Cam Akers is still there. He's still floating around. He's still taking away carries. But if Madison, I think if the Vikings are going to win this game without having Justin Jefferson, I think it's got to be a Madison game.
So I think this one, if memory serves me, the Bears are 30th against the fantasy points given up per game. I mean, really bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Bears are trash kind of all around on the defense. They played really well last week in prime time, but I don't know. Like it feels gross to play Madison. It really does, just because he hasn't done anything. And if I get burned, I get burned. But I think he's they don't have any Justin Jefferson. You have a green wide receiver 1 now and Jordan Addison. You still have TJ Hawkinson and KJ Osborne, but they're not the receivers they're not the receiver that Justin Jefferson is. So I can see them trying to lean on Madison, and if he gets started and gets hot, I think that's how the Vikings win that game. But I'm on the other side of it at the moment. Skipped over Rachaad White, skipped over Ramondre Stevenson. We talked about Khalil Herbert being on the IR. Skipped over Jerome Ford going up against San Francisco. I skipped over Dameon Pierce going up against New Orleans. Miles Sanders is out. Then you start getting into a lot of backups, so like Zamir White for Las Vegas. Now there is some value down here, starting with Amari DiMercato. He came in relief of James Conner after he went down for Arizona. The Rams defense isn't the greatest against the run. They're still middle of the pack, but he's got if he's getting all the touches, which I don't think he is. I want to say Keontae.
Not to interrupt, but yeah, Keontae Ingram today. He's a full go for this weekend. And he's actually earlier in the week was mentioned that he's listed as the lead back. So probably 50-50 split or 40-60. I still like DeMercado on this, but not as much as I would without Ingram.
Yeah, if Ingram was still out, yeah, it'd be a lock and load play for me at 4,900. And I was thinking about it because I had James Conner in a couple season long fantasy leagues, and I picked up DeMercado, and then somebody else picked up Keontae Ingram, and I was like, yeah, you got to be kidding me. So and I was a little late to jump the gun, but I think you're right. I think it's a 50-50 split. But to me, DeMercado is going to have the chip on his shoulder. Undrafted rookie, something to prove. He's going to be given the opportunity. So if he gets 10 attempts and then maybe some passing game work, who knows? And I mean, Keontae Ingram's he's coming off injury too.
That's what I was about to say. Been on the injured report all week, but he got pulled off on Friday. So
right, and the only thing that would think to me is he didn't play week 4, wasn't super involved in the other 2 weeks, where DeMercado's kind of been involved every week. Week 1 not so much, but yeah, week 2, week 3, and then week 4 with Ingram being out was in there quite a bit. But interesting play. I didn't write this guy up, but Cam Akers, if for some reason he gets hot and gets going at 4,800 against the third worst rushing defense in the league, Cam Akers could have a coming out party as well. Then the only other guy that I wrote up this week was when we talked about him was Deonta Foreman. So no Herbert. Roshan Johnson's been ruled out. The Bears, I mean, the only other running back they have is, I think, a fullback, Robert Burns.
Yeah.
They just signed him off the practice squad. And then the only other guy was the guy that was the fullback that they were running last week after Herbert went out. So Foreman at 4,400, 15 points is 4x or pretty damn close. So 15 points against going up against Minnesota. It's gross because Justin Fields runs a lot. He's been throwing the ball a lot better. But I'm telling you, if Foreman gets even, if he can get 12 to 15 carries and put up 80 yards, that's 8 points right there. And if he's involved at all, or if he falls into the end zone, falls in the end zone, that's 14 points. All you need is 80 and a touchdown. 80 and a touchdown, he's there.
Was that your last guy?
Yeah, that was the last guy I had. I mean, I like Ahmed, but we've been talking. He's been hurt too and pulled out. So, but yeah, that would be the last guy I got. So I don't know if you had anybody else that you really liked.
Yeah, I'm okay with Mixon. I mean, Mixon's not done a lot, but Seattle's defense is not good against the run. And the guy I really think needs to be mentioned is Chuba Hubbard. Without Miles Sanders, he's sitting at 4,300, and I think the opportunity is there. If I had to choose between Foreman and Hubbard, I think I'm going Hubbard.
Yeah, and you know what? Now that you say that, because when I posted this article this morning, and the Sanders news came out after that. So,
exactly.
But yeah, Chuba Hubbard deserves to be in there. You're 100% right. 9 attempts. So I mean, and Sanders played the whole game last week, didn't he? Or did he go out in the middle of it?
He may have gotten hurt in the fourth, but I mean, he pretty much played the whole game. So
yeah, and I mean, and even and it was kind of, I guess you're talking a little bit of a blowout, but every week, Hubbard's got 14 carries in week 4. He got 9 carries in week 5. he's been getting work. So he knows the offense. And yeah, going up against Miami's defense is a little bit better than what they've been in years past. But yeah, I mean, they're still middle of the pack. They can still get torched. Yeah, I think Chuba Hubbard might be a lock and load play.
I think so. So that's all I had as well. Do we want to?
Yep, let's break for. Yep, we'll hit another commercial and we'll jump into wide receivers.
Transform your body into a canvas of exquisite storytelling and profound self-expression with the skilled hands of Ryan Allison. Craft custom masterpieces that tell your unique story together. Ryan specializes in color tattoos as well as black and gray. He also practices a diverse range of styles, whether you're passionate about anime, fantasy, mythology, pop culture, video games, movies, the esoteric, nature, creatures, dot work, black work, or you have your own ideas. Ryan embraces your distinct vision with an unwavering commitment to passion, precision, and originality. Each project he undertakes is a labor of dedication, a fusion of research, artistic ingenuity, and profound symbolism. His commitment to authenticity is nothing short of remarkable, infusing his very soul into every creation. From half and full sleeves to bodysuits, awesome back pieces, to majestic front panels, Ryan is the artist for anyone seeking powerful, breathtaking artwork. With every stroke of his needle, he weaves a tale that's as unique as you are. Don't settle for ordinary tattoos when you can elevate your ink to the extraordinary with Ryan Allison. Embark on your creative journey by booking a consultation with him and proudly exhibit your story on your skin. Visit Ryan at Why Not Ink Studio in North Park Mall or check out his portfolio online at ryanallison.art. Ryan Allison Tattoos. When you choose me, you're not just getting a tattoo, you're getting an experience.
So we're now going to turn to wide receiver preview, and I've been assigned that task, so we'll run over them real quick with you. My first one I listed here was the overall top price player, Tyreek Hill. Tyreek and Waddle are playing against the Panthers, and their individual prices are $9,300 for Hill, $7,600 for Waddle. Next guy I've got listed here is Cooper Kupp. What a comeback for him last week. He'd been out the whole season, and he comes back and pretty amazing on his comeback. So him and Nakua playing the Cardinals, you're sitting at 9,000 and 8,000. It's kind of hard for me to pay up for Kupp, but still, I think he deserves a shout out for the way he played. And if you wanted to work that way, you certainly could. My guy that actually our guy that we both chose is the next guy that I have listed is going to be Jamar Chase. I feel in some ways I'm point chasing after 3 touchdowns, but still I love the matchup. So we got him sitting at 8,300, and like I said, T. Higgins returned to a full practice today, so I don't mind him. He's at 6,400, so I kind of like both those guys. Then the next guy down here, you always have to list the pair of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They're sitting at, let's see, what do we got? 8,000 and 7,400 respectively. I also like Devontae Adams and Devontae sitting at 8,100. A guy that's in Jordan's lineup, DJ Moore, sitting at 6,500. I don't mind this, even though he's been really inconsistent with Zach Wilson at the quarterback helm. Garrett Wilson, he's playing versus the Eagles at 6,000. A guy that's been hit or miss all year. I hope he hits because he's in my league of record. Nico Collins, he's playing the Saints at 5,600. Don't love this guy, but it's kind of for the price. I don't mind him. Drake London playing against the Commanders at 4,800. I skipped over this guy. I should have already mentioned him. Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was sitting at, I believe, 7,700. And then his counterpart to go with him is Josh Reynolds, sitting at 4,600. Reynolds has been pretty good. I'm kind of interested to see where Jameson Williams starts fitting into the puzzle. And like I mentioned earlier, Sam Laporta right now is questionable. Missed practice on Thursday, came back to a practice today. It was just a walkthrough, so I don't, haven't played football myself. A walkthrough really doesn't mean he did much. So we'll see where he goes from there. I've already mentioned the fact that he's in my lineup, Josh Downs at 4,100. I also didn't mind Michael Pittman sitting at 6,300. Also, we've already talked a little bit about the Vikings receivers. I've late from memory, Jordan had Osborne in his, and we've already mentioned Jordan Addison. Both of those are viable plays this week. And I kind of love the Jaguars. Got Calvin Ridley, and in my lineup we went with Christian Kirk. They were sitting at 67, and I really like the reduced price of Kirk at 5,400. And last but not least, also in my lineup was Adam Thielen playing at the Lions at 5,900. Jordan, is there anybody you'd like to add in?
Yeah, I think we talked about all the big name guys. We talked about Waddle. I had Godwin written in my lineup just because I think that matchup's pretty good for DFS. But that was when Mike Evans was he was hurt. So now that Mike Evans was a full participant in practice, I'm off of him a little bit. I think they're still good. Godwin had his best output of the year last week. 11 targets, caught 8 of them for 114 yards. I'm sorry, not last week, but week 4. So getting some rest and then coming back and going home and playing against the high-powered Detroit team, I think both him, Evans, and Godwin both have the upside. We talked about Ridley, talked about Moore, talked about Pittman, Garrett Wilson. I was on Garrett Wilson. I really like that. Somebody who I didn't write up, but I was kind of intrigued with was DK Metcalf. Now he was hurt and not practicing to start the week, so I had Tyler Lockett written up, but DK he practiced in full today. So and when they wrote the report here, the Seahawks hadn't finished practice yet, but he was out there and he was running routes. So we talked about DJ Moore, we talked about Michael Pittman, Garrett Wilson, Adam Thielen. One guy that I didn't write up, who I read some good things about and is in a revenge game, if you believe those kind of narratives, Jacoby Myers. So Devonta Adams he's healthy, or at least they're saying he's healthy. Sorry about my cat. So they're saying he's healthy. He's saying he's healthy. But if there's one thing that Bill Belichick does, that's try to shut down your number one guy. The number one guy on the Raiders is Devonta Adams. If they double him and they decide that they're going to try to shut him down, Jacoby Myers in a revenge narrative, 5,800. He had 10 targets last week. He's had double-digit targets in 3 of the 4 games that he's played. I could see this one being a good game for Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, from averaging almost 17 fantasy PPR points per game, I think, as well, which is kind of a shocking stat.
Yeah, he's been great. Yep, I wrote up Christian Kirk, Drake London. I had Drake London, so I was happy to hear you say that. I had Tyler Boyd written up, but that was only if Higgins was out. With Higgins being back, now it still says that Higgins is a game time decision. He did practice in full, but he's still Zach Taylor said he's a game time decision. So he's still got a questionable tag. He did practice in full. You're right, but keep an eye out for that. So if they do hold him out because of the rib, I like Tyler Boyd at 4,600. Talked about Josh Reynolds. Talked about KJ Osborne. Talked about Josh Downs. 2 guys that I really like that are kind of bottom of the barrel, DJ Chark and Jonathan Mingo. Chark is 4,000. Jonathan Mingo's 3,500. Playing up against the Miami team where I think they're going to have to throw a lot. They're both they're both getting pretty close to the same amount of targets and on the field for the same amount of time. Just check my notes here. Jacksonville. Nope, that's not it. There it is. Carolina. So DJ Chark and Jonathan Mingo, both of them are on the field for damn near all the snaps. And their target share is pretty well the same. Jonathan Mingo is actually on the field less, but getting more targets. So do with that what you will. But at $3,500 in a game where they're going to have to throw, if you needed to get to the bottom of the barrel, Jonathan Mingo's an interesting play. And then I had Jackson Smith and Jigba written up, but now that DK Metcalf's practicing, he really hasn't done much. But if he was going to be thrust into the wide receiver 2 role, I had him. But since Metcalf's back, I'm kind of off of him now.
I think Jig was going to be a guy as we carry forward to the rest of the season. Now that they're coming off a bye, you'll start seeing him more involved. But I don't know if it'll be enough this week in a DFS play. But somebody I would want to keep a stash on my bench and redraft for sure.
Oh yeah. All right, let's hit one more commercial here, and then we'll wrap things up with tight ends and defense.
For Fantasy's Sake has teamed up with Route 96 Boutique to raise a little more cash for Toys for Tots this season. From September 10th until the end of November, 10% of all purchases made with Route 96 on Sundays will be donated to us for our Toys for Tots drive. At Route 96, they believe in girl power. They want a place that people of all shapes and sizes can shop and feel empowered and beautiful. They want you to be the best you possible, and they are committed to bringing you different styles while also providing some basics to express the true you. You can find them on Facebook and at route96boutique.com.
Yes, DJ, the cat is making a cameo. This is Callie. So she just likes to hang out and have a good old time.
That sounds like a fun time.
So let's get into these tight ends here.
It could be the mascot of the show.
Yeah, she's a good cat. She's an outside cat. She's like a dog. She comes inside when you tell her to, but I like her.
I used to have one like that.
Yeah, she's starting to shed a lot, so there's hair everywhere. All right, tight ends. Here we go. So first one, most expensive on the slate. So we don't have your typical Travis Kelce on here. So TJ Hawkinson takes it down at 6,600. He's pretty involved regardless, but with Jefferson being on the IR now, I think he is. I think he's a great play against a team that doesn't defend in the secondary very well at all. Tight ends have had huge games, so I think Hawkinson's definitely worth the pay up price, especially if you're going to look at stacking that game. I didn't write up Laporta just with him being hurt. I wasn't entirely sure. Same thing with George Kittle. George Kittle had a pop game last time out, but he did it all off touchdowns. He had 3 catches off 4 targets for 67 yards and 3 touchdowns. So every catch he had went for a touchdown. Scored 27.7 points, but before that, just hasn't been doing it. 4.9, 6, 16, and then 2 points the week before that. So he's always liable to go off for those big games. I'm not chasing it. Cleveland's defense is still pretty legit. So I won't be on Kittle at all, not at 5K. A guy that I hate to chase games, I really do, but a guy who had a fantastic game out last week, and I had in my lineup at one point, and I took him out, Dallas Goedert. This man went ham last week, 9 targets, 8 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. He gets the second worst defense against the position now. So Dallas Goedert's somebody that I definitely will have in my lineups. Cole Kmet. Justin Fields has thrown 8 touchdowns in his last 2 games, and Kmet's caught 3 of them. So, and I think DJ Moore might have had the other 5.
He had 4.
He had 4.
Yeah, DJ had 4. Kmet had 3. Everybody else unknown had 1. Probably like the "you stole my touchdown" Adam Rank likes to talk about. So
yeah, So he's a red zone threat. They look for him in the red zone, and he's pretty athletic, so he gets open in the middle of the field. So I do like Komet. I skipped over Ingram. I skipped over Hunter Henry. Um, I will probably never play Tyler Higbee ever again. Now that he used to get a ton of targets and was, usually the number 2 option in this offense. He just never did anything with them. And now with the emergence of Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp coming back, I mean, Higbee's going to be an afterthought. He's going to be a blocker. He had 3 targets. So he had 7, 5, and 11 targets in his 3 games prior to week 5. Last week he comes out, has 3 targets, catches 2 of them for 20 yards. To me, Higbee, I think Higbee's fantasy value is definitely going to go down. And you never know what you're going to get with Taysom Hill, so I skipped over Taysom Hill. Skipped over David Njoku going up against San Francisco. Skipped up over Schultz going up against New Orleans. I got back down to Zach Ertz. Everybody was on Zach Ertz last week. He's been getting volume. He didn't do too bad last week. He only had 2 catches, but he had a touchdown, so he scored 9 points. But I don't mind going back to him because the volume is there. Somebody that we do agree on, Kyle Pitts. It looked like that was the first time last week that Atlanta realized that this guy was even on their team. He's been the number 1 target. He's the number 1 in target share on this team this season. He just doesn't do anything, and it bugs me so much because he is such an athletic guy. Now that he's priced $1,000 lower than he was in week 1, I have no problem taking a shot. He scores, if he scores what he did last week and scores, 12 to 15 points, he's at 4x, and he's helping keep you on pace for a tournament. Somebody who I really love this week at the same price point, Logan Thomas, probably one of the best tight ends in the game when he's healthy, but it seems like he always has to deal with concussions. 11 targets last week, caught 9 of them for 77 and a touchdown. Kind of the same thing as Dallas Goedert. Do I expect that kind of output? No. But at 3,500, so last week he was 3,100. He had 21.7 points. That's 7x his salary, 7 times his salary. That's way better than anybody else below him. Jonnu Smith. So I didn't realize that Jonnu Smith was the one getting all the work. Consistently targeted 6 times, 8 times, 6 times, 7 times in the last 4 games on the Falcons. At 3,400, I mean, he's only $100 cheaper than Kyle Pitts. I definitely liked him better when he was below $3,000. Now that he's at 3,400, it's kind of hard to justify, especially if Pitts is starting to take some targets away from him.
Last week, I think there was about a $300 or $400 difference between the prices, and now it's only $100 difference. And like you said, prior to last week, Jonnu had gotten all the work. So,
yeah. I skipped over Tyler Conklin, but he's always live for a touchdown. Cade Otton. So Detroit's been good against the run. They've been good against the pass. The one thing they haven't been good against is the tight end position. He gets looks. He's getting anywhere from 3 to 4 targets a game. He's been pretty productive with them at 3,200. If he gets you 10 points, that's 3x. Hayden Hurst, the Tommy Tremble touchdown last week scares me a little bit, but Hayden Hurst going up against Miami D were the same thing. They're pretty decent against the run and the pass, just not the greatest against the tight end. And he was really week 1. I was all over Hayden Hurst, and then I haven't talked about him since. And I think this could be another week where he catches a couple and then scores a touchdown. And then somebody at 3K that I really like, Noah Fant. So Noah Fant, it's always hard to judge between him and Will Dissly, but Noah Fant's been very consistent this year. 9.6 points, 8.1, 8.3, and then he had a bye last week. So he's getting work, he's getting looks. And not only does he get looks, he gets looks deep down the field. He had 2 catches last week, or in week 4 before the bye, for 63 yards.
That one where he almost scored was an amazing play on his part.
Yeah. So I mean, he's definitely good out in space. He can definitely get away and break tackles. So I do like Noah Fant, but I think that's it. I didn't have anybody I didn't have anybody lower than him that wasn't just a, I mean, there's a lot of guys out here who come in on goal line sets and maybe just follow the end zone, but that's all I had for tight ends.
There's one name, and you may have mentioned, but I didn't hear you mention him, Evan Ingram. So
yeah, I didn't write him down. I kind of skipped over him. I just at the 4,500 price point, like if I'm gonna pay up to 4,500, I feel like I can just get to Goddard or Komet. And like I said, that's just my opinion. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Evan Ingram, you look at his. I mean, he's gotten at least 8 targets the last 4. I mean, exactly 8 targets the last 4 weeks, and he catches them. He does stuff with them. Has yet to score a touchdown this year, though. Hasn't scored a touchdown. So just think, I mean, on some of these games where he's putting up 13 points, if he scores a touchdown on top of that, he 20 points. That's 4x, and this is actually the cheapest he's been all year. So not by much, but 4,500 is a couple $100 less than what he's been. All right, let's close it out with some defenses here. I don't like paying all the way up for defense, but this might be the week. 49ers at 4K facing the Browns, who are going to be led by PJ Walker.
Yep.
PJ Walker's a turnover machine. We saw it in his time in Carolina. The 49ers aren't a great scoring defense, but this might be the week.
I honestly don't scored a touchdown all year yet.
No, like I said, this is where you get a little contrarian and stay away from Christian McCaffrey and any of the other pieces from San Francisco and just play their defense. Because it could be, you could very well see the 49ers get out to a 3 touchdown lead and 2 of those be defensive touchdowns.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. Next one, right below that, the Raiders at 3,900. The Patriots have scored a total of 3 points in their last 2 games. The Raiders defense isn't as stout as the Cowboys or the Saints, but watching Max Crosby in primetime last week, that dude is a freak of nature. He is all over the field, making tackles. If he can have that kind of effect on Mac Jones, I think the Raiders at 3,900 could play big, could be payoff in big dividends. Skipped over the Eagles. I skipped over the Rams. The next defense I wrote up was the Falcons. The Bears had a field day against the Commanders last time out. The Falcons are a little bit better than middle of the road and could make Howell's life hell for the second week. So I fully expect the Commanders, after having 10 days off, to definitely address their offensive line and what happened against the Bears. But the Falcons have been a pretty decent defense all year. Right below that at 3,500, the Dolphins. Bryce Young's not good. He hasn't been good all year. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to throw a pick six. At $3,500, the Dolphins against Bryce Young, I like that. I skipped over the Jags, skipped over the Saints, skipped over the Colts. The next one I went to is the Commanders. And this is a grosser play, but I kind of thought, like, trying to find somebody kind of in the middle tier. Ritter was the second highest scoring fantasy quarterback last week, but the Commanders still have a solid defense. If the Commanders are going to try to shore up their offensive line and their defense, I definitely think they could cause Ritter to have a few mistakes. With how hot the Bears have been lately, I don't like the Vikings. The Seahawks and the Bengals, I don't like them. I don't like Houston against New Orleans. I don't like the Jets against Philly. You talked about the Lions against Tampa Bay. We did talk about how Baker Mayfield's been a little bit better this year, but he's still not good. So I definitely do I like that play, especially for a $2,700 defense. I skipped over the Patriots, and then the next team I went to was the Bears. So they just played a fantastic game against the Commanders. They're $2,500, and Minnesota just lost its best offensive weapon. Kirk Cousins will make mistakes. It's in Chicago. I think as far as getting down, I don't want to go any lower than these guys. But yeah, I think the Bears I think the Bears defense could surprise some people. And like I said, I mean, if they're put up 10 points, I mean that's 4x their salary right there. So, and I think that's a big possibility. They just have to keep Kirk Cousins contained, and I think they can do that. But yeah, Cardinals against the Rams, no thanks. Bucks against the Lions, no thanks. Browns against San Francisco, no thanks. I mean, I guess you could play the Panthers. You could make a case for it against Miami, but Miami also just does. They don't turn the ball over. They haven't punted. They just don't give the Panthers a whole lot of opportunities. So you can make a case, but I just don't think it's there. So the Bears would be the lowest I would go this week.
If I had to have a salary saver, I don't expect the 49ers to turn the ball over really, but Browns have been really good on defense. So if I had to have a salary saver out of those bottom 5 defenses, I'd take the Browns. But
yeah,
sucks. But 2,300, you could buy yourself a lot of room elsewhere. So maybe they can get a couple of or whatever.
Right. Yeah. No, we had and it's funny because once we get into these bets, these last year bets here, so the boys and I have been talking all week long about the Browns and 49ers game. So when the line opened up at 4.5, and myself and I think Nick and God, now I'm drawing a blank on his name. Jesus. Anyway, not Jesus, but so we were all talking and we're all kind of talking about it. And we're like, yeah, like I think that's way too low. So I ended up getting the 49ers at -5. And now the line's doubled. So yeah, I like the 49ers, and I think, I don't know, it could be a trap, but we'll see what happens.
So did you have any picks this week, Jordan?
Yeah, so you can't get this line anymore, but I locked in the 49ers at -5. The Bears, I locked them in there. I mean, honestly, I locked them in at +3 because I thought after Jefferson got hurt that the line would change, but it's still at +3, so you can still get that. So I like the Bears +3, and then I think the Seahawks are still getting a lot of credit for how good they kind of started the year. I mean, they're the only team that's given the Lions a loss, but they play a lot worse away from home, and they travel to the Bengals, and the Bengals are only given 2.5. So I like the Bengals to beat them by more than a field goal.
Yeah, I've got the Bengals as well. Even though I don't like to lay this many points, I took the Dolphins -13.5 versus the Panthers. I've got the Falcons -2.5 versus the Commanders. I like the Bucks at home, getting 3.5 versus the Lions. And the last 2, I took the Sunday night game, the Bills -14. Like I said, I don't like to lay that kind of points. I just don't see the Giants doing anything. So the Bills -14 versus the Giants. And last but not least, I like the Chargers at home on Monday night, getting 2.5 versus the Cowboys.
Yeah, the Cowboys disappoint me every year, man. Every single year. I don't know what to do. Dak's not the answer. I've said it since they decided to give him the big contract, and every single week I watch and I get hopeful and just getting just destroyed by San Francisco last week is I couldn't watch the rest of the game. I turned that thing off. I was like, you gotta be kidding me, boys. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, that game was over. I could see a scenario where the Cowboys win, but not by enough points. So I went with the Chargers at home. I think the Chargers are a pretty good team.
Yeah, I definitely think they've
but pretty shitty coach.
Yeah, they're starting to click on all cylinders. They should have Austin Eckler back. They're coming off a bye week. I mean, it's a recipe for success. So
yeah, I kind of like that game for sure. So do we have any additional comments, or are we ready to sign out of here?
No, man, I think we're good. I think we've hit an hour and 10 minutes. Kind of weird. Nobody on tonight. There must be a lot of stuff going on. There was a DJ gave me a shout out about the cameo for the cat. But usually we have some questions, man. I shared it to Facebook. I shared it to X. I shared it to not YouTube. I don't have a YouTube account, but shared it to all the platforms. Usually we get like 8 or 9 people jumping in, and Josh is usually here asking questions, and a couple other people that I know, and Nobody tonight. It's kind of sad.
Well, hopefully we had some listeners, and hopefully we helped somebody in their lineup. So
Yeah, nope.
where,
I tell you guys. I tell you what. Like I said, like you said last week, I've been right there.
that's really all we can ask for, is to be right there, and we'll take down the big one in due time for sure. Like you said, you've done it a couple of times before. So
Yeah. So, and I usually key, what I have on my sheet and what I have in my article that you can find on Substack, man. I mean, that's usually what I typically play, and what I talked about it all last week. If you listened to me at all last week, talk about Brees Hall and David Montgomery, you should have smashed. Should have smashed. I mean, that was right there was 50 points, and then I kind of jumped on the Jamar Chase, hit the train a little bit late, but I mean, between those three guys, I had 120 points. So, like I said, if my quarterback, I think I had Josh Dobbs in my best lineup, and he had every opportunity to kind of throw the ball, but I was missing a quarterback and a defense, and I was taking down some tournaments, but I'll take the little bit of money I won.
oh, exactly. That's what it all boils down to. Number one, fun. Number two, bringing home a little bit of money, and hopefully bringing down the big one. So
yeah, I like the sweat.
So Jordan, where can they find you?
So yeah, you can follow me at jfantasy_sports on X. I write the Substack article, the DFS deep dive, every single week. It comes out Friday mornings at 10 a.m. So I usually work on that all week. This week, like I said, a lot of injuries coming out late between last night and then this morning. So I try to have it pretty well done and scheduled Thursday night after the Thursday night game. And yeah, there was just a lot of stuff that broke this morning that I didn't quite catch.
So can they find that article there on your X page?
Yep. So I posted to at jfantasysports on X, usually every morning about 10 o'clock on Fridays. I also share it to my Facebook page. So if you follow me on Facebook, just Jordan Kernan. But then, then every Friday night, Brian and I are breaking it down on the For Frequency Sake Network, man. 7:15. Tune in. It's a good time. We have a good time. So.
Well, as for me, you can always find me at Vandygrad92 on X. Please remember that there's a Sunday main show from 10 a.m. to 11:30. Like Jordan said, we're part of the For Frequency Sake Network, and we have our DFS show every Friday night, and then do the main show on Sunday. And any of our stuff you can find at our individual X pages. And we want to thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully, when you listen to this, it'll be before you set your lineups. You'll bring down the big one. And hope everybody enjoys the week 6 games. And thanks again for tuning in, and have a great weekend.
See you guys later.